Hey everyone, welcome back to the Movie Fanatics. I'm Brayden, and 2022 marks the 60th anniversary of the James Bond film series, and in celebration, we'll be reviewing all 25 James Bond films, and today is the start of it. Today we will be looking at the 1962 smash hit introduction to everyone's favorite British Secret Service agent, James Bond 007, in Dr. No. Starting with the pros, there's a lot to love about this film, starting with the main thing, Sir Sean Connery as James Bond. Rest in peace, sir, you will be missed. This was the lightning in a bottle idea that the filmmakers needed. Famously, Ian Fleming called Connery a thug and didn't like him being cast in the role, but once Connery did the role, Fleming came around to him. He is just so great in this film. Even though his performance will be perfected by his third film, I'd argue he's better here than he is in You Only Live Twice and Diamonds Are Forever. More on that eventually. Getting back to Connery here, he embodies everything about Bond. The suave nature, the brutality, the lethalness, the coldness, the charm, and being effortlessly cool. Connery's awesome here, and his performance is so great. It's incredible. When Bond is first introduced in this film, it is my hands-down favorite James Bond scene ever. The way Connery says it is just perfect. Another big pro is the first ever main Bond girl, and that is, of course, Honey Rider, played by the stunning and awesome Ursula Andress. It's the first Bond girl, and she's such a strong character. Again, it takes them all the way to the third film to match how strong this character is. Other than when she has to be saved, she has a mix of naivety while also having an air of toughness. If you say she's a weak character, I don't know how. The first thing she does is pull a knife on Bond. She's threatening him. When she's taken away from the dinner table later on, she fights back against the guards. And when she's rescued at the end, she isn't hysterical. Bond frees her, and together they run side by side to escape Dr. No's exploding base. Her screen presence is something else. She's beautiful yet very strong and intimidating. When Bond and her are walking along the beach, she's almost as tall as Connery is. Honey Rider will continue to be the template of what makes a great Bond girl. That slight naivety mixed with wit, beauty, and all-around emotion as a character. She is still one of my top 3 favorite Bond girls and still just a great character in this film. With Bond and Honey Rider, we get Bernard Lee as M, an iconic M, Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny, the best Moneypenny ever, and Jack Lord as Felix Leiter, the coolest Felix ever. All have become character staples in this series, and all 3 actors give really solid performances, and the Bond Moneypenny scene is my hands-down favorite Bond Moneypenny scene ever. The chemistry is just there and so charming to watch. We also get Quarrel, played by John Cates-Miller, a great ally, Sylvia Trench, played by Eunice Gayson, technically the first girl we see Bond kiss in the series, making her the first secondary Bond girl, and Peter Burton as Q. Of course, Q goes on to be a fan favorite when played by Desmond Llewellyn, but Peter Burton's Q is responsible for one of the most iconic things about the series. He gives James Bond his iconic Walther PPK. All the side characters make for great additions and all give very solid performances, but there's one more set of characters to talk about. The villains. There are technically 4 villains in this film. Dr. No, played by Joseph Wiseman, Professor Dent, played by Anthony Dawson, Miss Taro, played by Zena Marshall, and Reggie Carter as Jones. The character of Jones is very brief, but it does prompt the first fight of the series. The actor is good, but not all that memorable. On to Miss Taro. First of all, Miss Taro's scenes with Bond are very interesting. On the one hand, it gives us a glimpse into how cold and rough Bond can be, but on the other hand, it is a little uncomfortable. It's also something to point out that they're trying to make Zena Marshall look like she's a different race, and it just hasn't aged well. It just comes off a little weird when you look at the actress in real life. Minor quibbles aside, Bond scenes with Miss Taro show how Bond really will do anything in favor of the mission, just how Bond should be. Next up is Professor Dent, played by Anthony Dawson, who is Dr. No's second-in-command and my personal favorite villain in this film. The character is played supremely. He just feels so slimy and just evil. All the scenes he is in are just so tense and suspenseful. When he's first introduced, it's just some quick shots of him, but the actor just emotes evil right away. He's awesome. The scene after Bond gives Miss Taro to the authorities and has set up the room to set a trap for Mr. Dent, or Professor Dent, is brilliant. Bond and Dent's brief conversation and Bond shooting Dent in cold blood is a character-defining moment and such a cool moment for Connery. It is easily my favorite moment in this film and one of my favorites in the entire series. Now, on to the mysterious Dr. No, played by Joseph Wiseman. While I do enjoy this character a lot, and having him show up so late into the movies is interesting, I miss that early Bond and villain meeting that happens normally in the first act of most Bond films. While it's a good idea to keep him mysterious, you miss all that great stuff with the villain, and the scenes with him are good, but he isn't in it enough to really make an impression. Also, he falls into the same thing as Miss Tarot, making a guy play a completely different race and doing a little makeup. It just doesn't age well. With all that being said, Dr. No is good, but probably one of the weaker points of this very solid film. Now, in picking favorite scenes of this movie, I really do love this movie. So for my series review of all these Bond films, I'm going to be, for each film, I'm going to be picking out my top 3 favorite scenes in each film. Dr. No was tough because there's so many iconic scenes, but here are my 3 favorite scenes in this film. Starting with my first one, which is one I previously talked about. Of course, Bond killing Dent in Cold Blood. The way that sequence plays out, how both actors deliver their lines, really makes it suspenseful and a big highlight of the film. Love how there's no music and the only sounds are the sounds of night, the sounds of gunfire. Love the scene so great, and it just shows how effortlessly cool Connery can be in this role. You can't imagine any other Bond sitting there and looking as cool as Connery does. My second one is the brief scuffle Bond has with Jones on the side of the road. It's brief, but it shows how Bond is always ready for anything. And the way he makes Jones, like, get out of the car, and he's like... I love how Connery plays Bond in this movie, because it's very, like, It's almost like a robot. He's very just, like, to the point, like, you know, hands where I can see them. Like, he's just spitting out these things. He's very tough and raw and real in this movie, which I also really love about Connery's performance, is how unpolished it is. Great performance. Anyway, the fight with Jones, of course, is really entertaining. It's very brief, but also to note, in one shot, you can see that Connery's knuckles are red, showing how dirty and rough the fighting can be when you're a spy. Like, you will get beat up, and people credit Craig as being the first gritty Bond. No, it's all the way back in the very first Bond film. Connery was getting roughed up. And, of course, my third favorite scene is easily the most iconic of this film. It is, of course, when Honey Rider emerges from the ocean. This scene is just what makes the Bond series the Bond series. It is still a glorious bit of filmmaking and just so great. That the dialogue that follows is sharp and witty. Honey Rider is introduced as both beautiful and tough, and Ursula Andress does it all perfectly. Without this scene, the Bond series would not be as iconic as it is today. Great props for that scene. And on the Blu-ray transfer of Dr. No, the one that came out in the small, like, white James Bond box set, the transfer of Dr. No is incredible. It looks like it was shot yesterday. It helps that the film is shot in Jamaica with all of these colors, because it really contributes to a fantastic Blu-ray transfer. And that scene that I just talked about, when she emerges from the ocean, is a prime example of a Blu-ray transfer done right. It looks glorious. Now, on to the cons. I really only have a few. The first one is the title sequence. I really do like how we don't have a pre-title sequence and we just go straight into the gun barrel and then the titles. And the Bond theme by Monty Norman and rearranged by John Barry is awesome. Should have mentioned that as a pro, but the Bond theme is awesome. And I love the colorful dots and the electronic beeping in, like, the opening couple seconds of the titles. But the rest of the titles draw me out of the sequence. The strange music changes from the Bond theme to, like, Jamaican music to the Three Blind Mice. By the time the titles end, it takes me a whole, like, 25 seconds to get, like, into the plot and into the movie, because the music is just so all over the place, and it just draws me out of it. But I do like the subtle peppering of Jamaican music and spy music throughout the film itself, but in the titles, it just doesn't work. To have 3 different, like, tones of music, it's just not good. Also, there's some very, like, loud, like, 60s music cues that make it feel like a TV movie, and they're just so jarring to me. The main one is when Bond gets back to his hotel and the assassins are about to take a shot at Bond. The music gets really loud, and it's just, that's just not Bond to me. The Bond music should be subtle and bombastic at appropriate times, not at like a really quiet moment like this. The only really cons I have with this movie are just with the music. That's what bugs me the most. That's what I really see as a flaw. The score would have been great if they would have worked on it more, but as it stands, I really don't like it outside of the Bond theme. All in all, Dr. No is a cracking debut Bond adventure for Sir Sean Connery, and for the Bond series, it's a ton of fun. I saw it for the first time all the way through during quarantine, and I loved it just as much now as I did then. This movie is a rock-solid film that is thrilling and suspenseful and fun from beginning to end, and it gets an A. Thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and write comments below about your thoughts on Dr. No, and I will see you next time when we take a look at From Russia with Love. This has been Brayden from the Movie Fanatics, signing off.